What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another edition of the CrazyFaceUno Podcast, where everyone has a story and everyone's story matters. What's your story? If you'd like to support the show and help us tell more stories like the one you're about to hear, please visit CrazyFaceUno.com today to purchase items for our online store or donate. And as always, I'm your host, Shane McNeely, and boy, are you in for a treat today. It is my honor and privilege to introduce my guest today. She hails from the Sullivan County, Indiana. Alyssa Arnett. Welcome, Alyssa.
Hi, Shane. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for being here. We appreciate it. How are you today?
I'm doing fabulous on this rainy Saturday.
I know, it's rainy here too. It is. It was raining buckets over here earlier. So, unfortunately, I was hoping. It looks like the weekend for myself is going to be it's a Saturday, and for those of you listening on the Monday, because we'll be posting this on Monday. It's a Saturday, and I was hoping that the weekend would be sunny and nice and be able to get out and about, but it might be one of those weekends.
Yeah, I think it's going to look like that way here as well.
Yeah. I am excited to have you on. We, probably a couple months ago, we talked to your husband, Kevin Arnett, and,
yes.
Him and I have been keeping in touch and chatting a lot, and, I had some ideas and thoughts of how I wanted to, maybe use your story to kind of tell a more in-depth story about mental health. You've had some experiences throughout your life with your family in that aspect, and so been kind of holding off on having you on, but decided that no time like the present. So welcome. I'm excited to kind of dig into your story a little bit. Why don't you start off and tell us what you're up to today? Tell us what you do for work and kind of what the things you're interested in.
Okay. Right now, I'm married to the love of my life, Kevin. Like you said, you talked to him earlier.
Whoop, whoop.
I have 3 amazing daughters. They are by far like the cutest kids ever, but I'm biased.
They're very cute.
They are ages 3, 4, and 6. And then I also have a stepdaughter who's 12, but next week she'll be 13.
Nice.
So we'll have a teenager in the house.
Wow,
and
that's crazy.
My poor husband, he's so outnumbered. But you know what? People always ask us, like, you know what? Don't you just want a boy? And I say, I'm good with all girls.
Yeah.
Like, they do very well together. They are so loving, and they just play so well together. And I feel like if we had a boy, that would just throw like a wrench and everything. But we're good with all girls.
Yeah,
we're good. No more kids. We're good with the 4 girls we have.
Exactly. And I know you guys just chaperoned the middle school dance. How was that?
Yeah, we did. So it was Kevin and I, and our 6-year-old conned us into going with us.
Nice.
And so she enjoyed the dance. She was bebopping around, kind of trying to dance to the music. I think she danced more than what my stepdaughter did, because I kind of creeped on her some. But
that's awesome.
It went well. There was not much drama going on, just some little girl drama.
That's no fun.
Kevin, he tried to creep on him as they're doing their little girl drama, just to be nosy.
You gotta do your parently duties, your mom and dad duties,
yeah.
Making things awkward and making things fun, so.
Yeah, we try not to make it too awkward for her. We try not to, be those mean parents, I guess.
Yeah, that's funny. That's hilarious. And what are you doing for work these days? I know you and Kevin have a couple different things, that you've been doing, and as well as Pink Lion Financial. Is that?
Yeah. So we just created a business called Pink Lion Financial, and we have gone to the federal prison that's close by us, and we taught inmates financial literacy. And that was quite an experience because I'd never been inside the prison.
Sure.
My husband used to work at the federal prison, so he obviously has more knowledge than what I do.
Yeah.
But I believe there was 21 inmates in the class, and
Wow.
they did an amazing job. They asked very intelligent questions, and we had, I think, one person that might have slept off and on. But other than that, we had like their captive attention, and they were just great. They were hands and feet above what I thought that they were going to do.
Yeah.
And so they definitely blew me out of the water on their participation.
Yeah. What an experience.
Yeah, that was definitely an experience going into the federal prison. And I could tell the story, but during lunchtime, the inmates, they go to lunch, and then, we have our lunch break, and
Yeah.
I kissed my husband, and I said, I bet you thought you never kissed your wife in federal prison. He goes, well, I never thought I'd kiss anybody in prison.
That's fair.
Yes, that's probably true.
Oh, that's so funny.
But it was quite an experience, and we're hoping to go back here soon, and we would love to. We just feel like this is something that everybody needs, not just inmates, but
Yeah.
everybody needs to know how to handle their finances, but especially inmates, because they have added challenges that the average population doesn't.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
so,
for sure.
our curriculum is geared directly to inmates and what challenges that they face upon release.
That's awesome. Yeah, I remember talking with
Yeah.
Kevin and him, kind of mentioning how there just isn't a program like that in the federal, prison system. And so the idea is amazing. And you're right. It's not just an issue that, is a prison or inmate like issue. It's one that permeates our culture today of just financial literacy in general, and it's not something that you really had the opportunity. There are programs and whatnot, but you would think for as much as our country and our world is money centric, it would be something that we'd put a little more focus on in the earlier years of in education and throughout the life of young adults in general.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like 78% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck.
Yeah.
I feel like our society kind of worships money instead of using money as a tool to get farther ahead in life.
Yeah, good point. I like that. Yep, I think you're right. And so you are also in the life insurance business.
Yeah, that's another area of Pink Line Financials that I help people. I help get them life insurance policies, people who have never had life insurance, or they've had term policies that have expired, because I do whole life. Mm-hmm. And my main focus is on people who are, aging and they don't have anything in place, or they're on fixed incomes and they just think that they can't afford it.
Yeah.
And then whenever they realize how much life insurance would be, they say, that's it? Like, that's all it's going to cost me? They're completely shocked of how affordable life insurance is.
Yeah.
And as well, this is definitely affordable versus if you were to die tomorrow, average funeral is about $10,000 over the U.S. And, does your family have that kind of money to just cover a funeral?
Yeah.
They say no. Most people can't just drop $10,000 on a dime and just say, yep, here's $10,000 for Grandma Betty's funeral.
Right. Yeah, and it's expensive, and it's one of those things that I think I've heard Kevin, at least because that's my connection, and talking about how, everybody deserves to have that honor and that respect given.
Right. And I feel like a lot of family members, if they do pass, I feel like the family has to, quote unquote, like, do them up cheap.
Yeah.
I've heard that so many times, like, oh, I just want them to do me up cheap, They want, the cheapest possible route. It's like, but is that like fitting of your life? It's just be done up cheap when you die.
Yeah.
And for most people, they're like, no, I lived a full life. I want people to remember me.
Mm-hmm.
I want them to remember that, they buried me in like a shoebox out in the backyard.
Yeah.
But you don't do that. You don't want to be burying people in your backyard.
Yeah, hopefully not. Hopefully there's a better option. And if you aren't sure about those options, they need to come talk to you guys at Pink Lion Financial and figure out some of the options.
Yeah, you don't want to be doing anything illegal.
Yeah, for sure. Is Pink Lion Financial, is it like the life insurance business that you're in? Is that primarily just for people in Indiana or people around the country? How does that work?
So you can be licensed in whatever state you want to be, other than like your home.
Sure.
State. My home state is Indiana, so my primary license is Indiana.
Yeah.
But I can get licenses in other states. I just haven't yet. I'm newly licensed.
Yeah.
And there's a fee. You know, Illinois is right across the river from us, but it's like $240 to get that license. So I just haven't made it around to getting that license. And some states cost, some states don't. Some different states have different laws and regulations.
Yeah.
So right now, Indiana's my primary state.
Yeah, which makes sense. I mean, starting out and this newer business that you've got, and until you need it in a lot of ways, what's the rush, right?
Right.
Cool. What else is going on in your life today? What else should we know about you?
Well, I feel like I have like so many adventures going on right now.
Yeah.
I feel like I don't know which way I'm going. But I also am a test administrator for the ASVAB testing,
cool.
Which is like the test that you take if you would like to enter the armed forces.
Yeah.
They take that test. You have to get a minimum of 31 to be able to join the military. And so Indiana right now, they're doing away with ISTEP. They're in the process of that. And so one of the testing alternatives that they can take to graduate high school is taking the ASVAB test. And so I go into local high schools and I test their students on the ASVAB.
Cool. How did you get involved with that? Was that just something you kind of fell into?
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah.
Kevin was on USA Jobs, which for people that don't know, usajobs.gov is for federal employment opportunities. Some opportunities are open to regular civilians. Some are open to already employed government employees.
Yeah.
And this one was open to the public. So he happened to see this for the Wabash Valley area.
Oh, perfect.
And so he said, hey, would you think about doing this? And I thought about it for a little bit. It's like, yeah, you know what? That's an extra income. And Kevin and I like to have like several streams of revenue coming in.
Absolutely.
We want to be financially secure whenever we're ready for retirement.
Yeah.
And we want to travel and do all these things. And we have goals, and in order to do that, we have to have money saved up.
Yeah, absolutely. That's awesome. That's really cool. That's a cool little gig.
Yeah, and as of November the 4th, I will be a grad student. Ooh. I'm going to get my my master's degree in criminal justice. My undergrad is in psychology, so they go very well together.
Yeah.
So I'm getting ready to start that endeavor.
Nice. That's exciting. What are your hopes to do with that specifically?
Well, maybe be a probation officer or an investigator for the state. We have a state prison that's close by, and I'd like to, possibly work for them or possibly work for the state or a local county probation office. That's my end goal with that.
Cool. That's awesome.
Grad degree. Yeah.
Yeah. Is that how long is that? A 2-year degree or the master's program?
It's a 2-year degree. Yeah. I could expedite it if I took more than one class at a time, but if you take one class at a time, it's 2 years.
Nice. Well, that's nice. I mean, this still gives you that flexibility to kind of do what you're doing, take care of your family, and still further your education and provide an opportunity for the future.
Right. And Kevin, he has his master's degree, and once I get my master's degree, our girls will be more inclined to get master's degrees as well, or possibly go on to get their doctorate, which I would love for one or all of my girls to have their doctorate.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's so true too. I mean, we're products of, in so many ways, of like the example that we've seen, growing up, and It's not that it's the like only option or the rule, right? But it's definitely something that when you see someone that's exceeding or succeeding, that's successful in whatever they're doing, or that's shooting for their dreams and going after it and crushing it in life, I think that it gives, especially like your children and people that look up to you, it gives them an example of what's possible.
Exactly. And knowing that, hey, if she can do it, I can do it.
Yeah, exactly.
And I'm going to be, Kevin and I are both going to be cheering our girls on, saying, you got this, you can do this.
Mm-hmm.
And, I feel like we're going to push them to get their bachelor's. I don't care what they get their bachelor's degree in, but I definitely want them to also then get their master's as well. I don't want them to stop learning. I don't want them to stop and just be like, well, I've got my bachelor's, that's good enough.
Yeah,
Like, I want them to go further than that.
Yeah. That's awesome. That's really cool. Alyssa, as we, we've kind of got a little snapshot of your life now. If we're to go back and we were to look at your childhood, what was your childhood like?
So, I lived out in the rural country. We had farmland, we had woods. It was me and my brother, who's not quite 3 years older than me.
Yeah.
And, we didn't have cable.
Yeah.
We had 3 channels on our TV.
Yeah.
And cartoons only came on Saturday mornings. So, to have fun, we would go outside and play and do kid stuff. We'd go out in the morning, come back in for lunch, and go back out until dinner was ready.
Uh-huh.
Me and my brother, growing up, we were each other's best friends because we only had each other. We didn't have like neighborhood kids that we could go play with because, our neighbors might be, a mile or so down the road, and there were no other kids.
Yeah.
But my dad, he worked mainly like factory type jobs. Whenever I was younger, he worked at a sporting goods store and sold guns legally.
Yeah.
And my mom was a stay-at-home mom until I was in first grade. And then she went to work seasonally as a tax preparer.
Okay.
And she did that for, I want to say 10 to 12 years.
Yeah. That's quite a time, the length of time.
Yeah. But, I feel like it worked very well for us because, she only worked, January to April.
Sure.
So the rest of the time, she was with us.
Those summer months.
Yeah, the summer months, she didn't have to worry about babysitters. My brother, he had a lot of health problems, so it was hard finding somebody that was willing to babysit him because, he had a really bad asthma. And so, if he had an asthma attack, people would freak out and didn't know what to do.
Yeah. Is so your mom doing tax consulting, is that was that something that kind of sparked the interest in some ways of some of the financial stuff, or do you feel like there's a connection there between that?
No.
Yeah, that's fair.
No, hers was mainly just preparing taxes.
Yeah.
And that's mainly what it was just preparing taxes for people. It wasn't anything of like the financial literacy aspect.
Okay. Yeah. Cool. Were there any like things in your childhood, like what were your interests? Did you have, like you said, you and your brother, you'd play outside, like what did you guys do? Like were you athletic? Were you into music, nature, movies, cartoons obviously were only on Saturdays, so probably not much to do with TV, I'm guessing, but what were your interests?
I feel like nature and just being outside was one of my interests. I loved animals. We always had like dogs and cats, and I liked playing with them. And I was actually talking with my mom the other day. It seems like everybody always dropped off animals if they didn't want them out in the country, and they always seemed to like find our place, probably because we fed them, and so they just stuck around.
Yeah.
But so we'd have like these feral cats that would come around, and they weren't spayed or neutered, so they would have 4 feral cats.
Yeah.
And so, like, whenever, like, they'd have kittens, my mom would be like, okay, Lisa, like, this is your job to try to tame those kittens so that we can, like, get them new homes, like, get them out of here.
Yeah.
And so, like, that was my job as a kid, that I'd have to go out there and find wherever they stashed their kittens at and get them used to human contact. And then we'd try to find homes for them. And so I enjoyed doing that. I loved going out in our woods. Every spring we would go mushroom hunting, and I loved mushroom hunting. I didn't so much like eating them, but I just liked hunting them.
Yeah, which it's funny, there's not a lot of places. Indiana is like, I feel like everybody in Sullivan, like growing up, that was the same thing. Illinois, Indiana. So I lived in Illinois for a little while. I grew up in Indiana, but mushroom hunting was always like this big thing. It was like the thing you did. And
every spring.
Yeah, there's a bunch of people that I know that do it in Minnesota as well, but it's just not quite as like popular of a thing to do. And maybe it has to do with the small town. Like, I don't know if like the smaller towns in Minnesota, if it was a more popular thing to do, but yeah, I like have really fun memories, growing up as a child, like doing that with my family and doing that with my mom and my dad. We'd go to, some of these different parks and just kind of go off the path and look for mushrooms. And yeah, even like in Sullivan, like in middle school, high school, like still doing the same thing, like going and finding little patches or, whatever. It was just a fun thing. So for people that aren't familiar with that, I guess is what I'm getting at, is mushroom hunting. There's no real hunting other than the fact that it's like a seek and find game, like you're looking for.
Yeah, you're looking down at the ground trying to find these mushrooms growing.
Yeah, you're looking for it.
And as a child, like I had a love-hate relationship with it because I'm terrified of snakes.
Oh.
And if I found a snake whenever I was mushroom hunting, like I was screaming and I was running the opposite direction.
You're like, I'm done. I'm out.
Did not like finding those.
Yeah.
And like that was like I remember like my pants legs, having like socks that would go up high and putting socks over the pants legs because I was scared like one of them was going to crawl up my pants leg.
That would be terrible. That would be terrible.
Oh my goodness, I probably would have peed my pants in fear.
That's so funny. Yeah, and so the mushrooms are morel mushrooms, so they're like a spongy looking top, and you said you didn't like them or you didn't really eat them, but they're delicious. If you fry them up in butter and with breaded or non-breaded, they're delicious.
Yeah, we would always bread them. And as an adult, I like them now. As a kid, I kind of tolerated them.
Sure.
And I felt like I kind of had to eat them because, like, you hunted them.
You did all this work to get them. Yeah. Oh, they're so good.
Yeah.
I had some. My wife and I, we went to, I think it was for her birthday. We went to this like restaurant that was like their seasonal like special thing was morel mushrooms, and they gave you these like 2 little morel mushrooms and whatever seasoned, and they charge an arm and a leg for these 2 little tiny morel mushrooms. You're like, man, I grew up eating like platefuls of these. Like,
wow, yeah, you'd have like platefuls, and you'd have like these like we always took Walmart bags.
Yep.
To go hunt them, and you come back bags full, and like everybody got their own bag because you might need another bag. Like, okay, this one's full, I need another bag.
Yep.
Yeah, and I was completely like blown out of the water by how much people charge for morels.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
People charge like $30 a pound.
I've been making a ton of money as a kid.
I know, right? Yeah, just selling them dehydrated one. You'll see those now, like dehydrated morels, and then you can rehydrate them, and supposedly they taste just the same. But I don't know. Yeah. It's crazy. There's definitely a business there for people that are selling morel mushrooms. They're ridiculously expensive.
Yeah, I know. I wish I would have known about it as a kid. I was like, man, I could have made so much money.
Yeah, something I did in Sullivan as a kid. This is a story about me just thinking about like making money. But I would go down, in the cemetery. So I lived on Section Street there. It was that little car lot across from Angel's Foods. Is where I lived. And so I'd ride my bike all the way down to the creek in the cemetery there, and there was a couple spots, and I had minnow traps and like crawfish traps, and I'd trap like the minnows and crawfish, and I'd take them to that bait shop over towards the Lake Sullivan there, and I would go in there, and he'd give me like $3 or $4, or $5, or depending on how much I had, like how much I had caught. But he'd give me money for them, and he'd sell them for bait. And so it was like a little fun little gig I would do when I was younger.
Your little entrepreneur adventure as a kid.
I know. I was always trying to like figure out the sneaky ways, or whatever, the fun little adventures of making a little extra money. So when you were a kid, when you were a child, and as you got older, were there anything that you would say that you wanted to be when you grew up? Like the classic, like, I want to be a whatever.
So I wanted to be a truck driver.
Okay.
As weird as that is.
Yeah. What do you think that was about?
Because I wanted to travel. That's why. And so my dad, he had a CB. Like, I don't really know exactly what they're technically called.
Yeah, like the little radios.
Like, he would talk. Yeah, like he talked to like truckers that were traveling on the highway, which we lived a couple miles off the highway, and he would get on his CB every so often and talk to truckers. And, they'd say where they were from, and I'd be, as a kid creeping in the background listening to these conversations.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, that's so awesome that, you're talking to somebody who's in a different state right now. Or, if it was clear weather, you'd have, better signal range. But
sure.
I just thought that was so cool. I'm like, man, these people are traveling all over. I want to be a truck driver.
Yeah.
And I think it was just like the traveling aspect that I liked, was just seeing the United States, because as a kid, we never went anywhere. Like, our family vacations were going to Holiday World, which for a lot of people, they're like, what the heck is Holiday World?
Yeah, it's actually in a city called Santa Claus, or a town called Santa Claus, Indiana, which is even funnier.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, people were like, what, you have a town named Santa Claus in Indiana? Right. I was like, oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's an amusement park called Holiday World.
Yeah, and it's a fun little amusement park.
Yeah, and each area has a different holiday thing. You've got your 4th of July, your Thanksgiving, Christmas.
Yep.
All these different holidays. Halloween.
Yeah, and then the water park was always really fun, too.
Oh, I love the water park.
And didn't they have?
That's probably one of my favorite parks.
Wasn't the wooden roller coaster? Wasn't that like the oldest, or like up there? It's like, it's known for something being one of the first or something wooden roller coasters, or
either the Raven or the Legend. Because whenever I was a kid, like, there was only the Raven. Like, there was no. Maybe it's the Raven. No Legend.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the Raven was the one.
Yeah, I remember, like, oh my gosh, I'm finally like tall enough to ride the Raven, and it was the best thing ever.
Yeah.
Because I'm short as an adult, and I was short as a child as well.
Yeah.
And man, like, just being old or tall enough to ride the ride, man, that was a big accomplishment as a kid. Yeah. I'm finally tall enough.
I know, right? Especially for us. Like, I don't know. I guess so. This is a fun little thing too, because we were technically in high school. We crossed paths in high school. But I don't really remember you. But I think you were
probably not.
Were you a freshman?
What year did you graduate?
2006.
2006. Okay, so you were, I was a freshman.
Yeah. So I just don't really remember. I don't remember a lot of, which is funny because like my graduating class was 120. Like our school was like less than, it's like 500, maybe a little bit over that, but like around 500 was like our student body. I don't know what it is today. Is it around the same?
Yeah. So I graduated in 2009, and there was like 150, I think 151 in my graduating class. Okay. And like mine was one of the larger ones.
Yeah.
Of course, now they've got huge grades that come through there, but really? At the time. Yeah. But yeah, I graduated in 2009, and we did cross paths.
Yeah.
And yeah, I was more academically inclined. I wasn't a partier and like anything like that.
Are you saying I was a partier?
Probably would have passed by. No. I'm just saying, like, I wouldn't have stood out.
Yeah, no, I'm just giving you a hard time. No, I mean,
I was like, I don't know. I was like, you may have been. I don't know. Like, I didn't know you.
Yeah, well, it's definitely
as far as I know.
The academic side of things was definitely not something I like. Really, I did enough to get by, and I didn't do bad, like I did okay, but I wasn't I I wasn't an academic student that was like, oh, I want to get the best grades possible. It was more like, what's the best I can do to like get into college and continue to be an athlete, and whatever. I was more athletically focused, and I didn't really party a lot. I didn't drink until like going into my senior year. I think was like the first time I really ever drank, and I only went to like a couple of those types of parties, and generally I was the one that would be like, hey, give me a call if you need me to pick you up. Like I would go and pick people up from the parties and be like, I'd be the sober driver, or if I went, I'd just be the sober guy. Like, like there were so many stories, so many people that would get caught for drinking. And for me, it was like my athletics was something that I took a lot of pride in. And it was what I excelled in, and I didn't want to get in trouble. So I generally tried to stay away from that stuff.
Yeah, I don't blame you. You don't want to jeopardize, your athletics for, some stupid decision that you made.
Yeah, it just wasn't worth it.
Fun fact, I was salutatorian of my graduating class.
Look at you. That's awesome.
Yeah. So academics definitely were a big role. It did come easy, like to me, as compared to like, say, like my brother who had to like work for like A's, B's, and C's. Like, yeah. A's came very naturally to me, and I didn't have to work as hard, and it frustrated him so bad.
Yeah.
Because he would be like, oh my gosh, like, you don't even have to do anything, and you get good grades.
Right, yeah. I could see how that would be frustrating, for sure. Was that something, did you remember that always being, like, a thing that you cared about, or something you focused on? Good grades, like, elementary school, middle school?
Oh, yeah, like, so my dad, whenever I was young, like maybe 3 to 5, he went to Vincennes University and took like some classes down there. And I remember going with him like one time because my mom couldn't watch me because she had a doctor's appointment. So I went to college with Dad. And so like it kind of stuck with me of like, oh, this is college. And my dad was like, hey, you want to go to college, which you're going to go. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. Like, you're going to go to college, and to be able to do that, like, you have to get good grades because mommy and daddy can't afford it,
Yeah.
And they're like, if you go, you got to get some academic scholarships.
Yeah. So it was a focus.
Only way you're going.
So it was a focus is for a while, for when you were younger.
Yeah. My mom, she didn't go to college. She just graduated from high school, and my dad, up until he took those classes at VU, like he just had his high school diploma. And so they stressed on us, like, we want you to do better than what we did, basically. We don't want you to be status quo. We want you to go on. We want you to better yourself. Yeah. And they kind of drilled it into me, my brother, when we were younger, like, you're going to go. But in order to do that, you got to get good grades. So get good grades.
Yeah. Did you go to Sullivan Middle School?
I did not. So
were you a Carlisle girl?
Carlisle.
Yeah, see, that's what I was asking.
Yeah.
See, this is another reason that I don't feel like I would have known you, because of Carlisle. Like, so for those of you listening,
there was a big split.
Yeah, Sullivan County. It's split up really weird I don't know if it still is, but then Carlisle, you would go to elementary and middle school in Carlisle, Indiana. And then after middle school, you would merge with the high school in Sullivan High School. And so there was this weird like merger in high school whenever you got there. So
yeah, I remember like my first day of freshman year, like I was just like, the school is so big. I don't know anybody. This is terrible.
Yeah.
My mom's like, just go to the second day. Like, please just go to the second day.
Yeah.
Just keep going. I was ready to quit and be like, I'm done with school.
Yeah. Well, you go from...
No. Like, it gets better. Yeah. It did. Like, I made friends. And, like, all my friends I have now, like, I didn't start out as friends with them freshman year. Like, they went to Sullivan. One of them went to Graceville, which is another school kind of like Carlisle was.
Right.
But they went to Sullivan Middle School.
Okay.
Whereas
I
Graceville did.
Yep.
Yeah. So
were you
it's
involved in
interesting.
any like extracurriculars in middle school, high school, outside of
Um,
just academics? Or
yeah, middle school, I was on the student council.
sure,
I was on the dance team and volleyball team.
nice.
When I went to high school, I didn't do any athletics. I was athletic, but I chose not to do athletics.
Yeah, yeah.
I did academics. I was in French club, Key club, Beta club, National Honor Society. I think that's it. That's the ones I remember offhand, at least.
Yeah, yeah. What was did as you became a little bit older, middle school, early high school, what was like your life at home? Was it similar? Did you still not have? Did you still have the 3 channels? Did you like spend a lot of time with home? What was your relationship with your parents?
So definitely still had the 3 channels.
Yep.
I loved going to my grandparents because they had cable.
Nice.
So that was great. At home, though, like home life, it was very tumultuous.
Yeah.
My mom and dad fought a lot. My dad, he battled depression.
Yeah.
And he also battled like a prescription drug addiction.
Okay.
And so, I'd have to go on basically kind of like, I call them like drug raids to where, okay, go around the house, find, any medications that shouldn't be here, dispose of them, or any paraphernalia, because like one of my dad's main methods was crushing pills and snorting them.
Okay.
So I'd have to find, spoons with residue on them. Okay, get rid of that. Straws, with residue in them, get rid of them.
And this was in like middle school, like 11, 12, school, 13? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. My mom, the job that she worked at the time, because she started a full-time job, she was a custodian at the Sullivan Middle School, actually. And she worked night shift.
So I would have met your mom then, for sure.
You would have met my mom, yeah, because she worked there during the time that you were there.
Well, and I worked at the middle school. It would have been my like sophomore summer of my sophomore year and the summer of my junior year.
Okay. I don't think my mom worked there at the time, though.
No? Okay.
During that time.
Yeah, because
No, she worked there for like 3 years, I want to say.
That was my summer job.
But by the time I got into high school, I think by the time I got into high school, maybe she wasn't there.
Okay.
I'm not sure now. I could be lying. I'm not sure. But, no, actually, when you were in junior high, she would have been there. Whenever I got into junior high, I believe she was like, transitioning to somewhere else. Okay. But anyways, she worked night shift, and so I didn't see her a lot because, she'd get home 11:30, close to midnight, and she would leave before I got home from school. So I'd only see her on the weekend.
Gotcha.
And so it was like me, my dad, and my brother there at the house.
Yeah.
And my dad and my brother are very similar, and me and my mom are very similar.
Yeah.
And I felt like, have you seen Harry Potter, like the house elves?
I haven't actually.
That's how I felt. Oh my goodness, you need to.
I know.
But anyway,
I'm missing out.
You are missing out. But for anybody who has watched Harry Potter, read the books, like I felt like a house elf.
Yeah.
I cooked, I cleaned laundry, kept up on the house. Like I was a little housewife in a way.
Yeah.
At like, 12, 13, 14 years old.
Yeah. How much older? How old was your brother? Was he was older?
He's like 3 years older than me.
Okay.
So however old I was at 3 years.
Yeah.
And then and my brother, he had a lot of like health issues when he was a senior in high school, which you guys went to school together.
Yeah.
I don't know if you remember him or not.
What was his name?
His name is Colt. Flynn's my maiden name.
Okay.
But so he had surgery on his feet. Like he had several surgeries to like try to help him with like different things that were wrong with his legs and his feet, because he had issues walking. And at one point he had like both feet in casts and he had to be in a wheelchair.
Yeah. I think I remember him now that you said that. I didn't
if I say that, most people are like, oh yeah, I remember that. But so like throughout his high school years, like he'd have like various surgeries, and later on they'd realize, oh well, that one surgery we probably shouldn't have done that because did absolutely no good. It did more harm than anything.
Yeah. Well, and then I'm sure with your dad's addictions as well, that probably was there abuse there with his medicines?
Yeah, 100%, yes. And then, so they would put my brother on high, like, pain medication.
Right.
Like, I don't know if you're familiar with, like, oxycodone,
right.
Methadone, all those that are, very high-strength pain medications.
Yeah. And
there was abuse of medications both by my brother and my dad.
Yeah.
So that made them, not themselves,
right.
Obviously.
Right. Well, these are the medications that are kind of in the news these days, of these big pharmaceutical companies that are being sued and for their role in some of the the opioid kind of crisis. And so
and I think my brother was like 14 when he started to be prescribed these medications, and it's like who in the right mind would prescribe these type of medications to a 14-year-old?
Right.
And how can you not, I guess, become addicted at that point? If you've been taking them for several years,
right?
How can you not become addicted?
Right. Well, and it's like they're effective, but they're just highly addictive and overprescribed in a lot of instances, and maybe not appropriately described potentially. Who knows? Right, in your family's instance. So.
Yeah. So I didn't like being at home because I didn't like how I was treated by them, and I didn't like the prescription drug abuse I was going on. And so mainly through my middle school years, I lived with my grandparents, my mom and dad.
Okay. So you, and that was, when did you, was that all the way through like middle school, high school, or was it just your middle school years?
Just middle school, because I would get to school. My grandparents lived a couple blocks away from the Carlisle school, so they might drop me off, or I might walk. Yeah, it was very convenient for me. High school, I would ride the bus up to Sullivan because I didn't have a car.
Yeah.
For one, I didn't have a license, but then once I did have my license, I didn't have a car.
Yeah.
So that was problematic.
Yeah.
But I would ride the bus there.
So as you get into high school, how did things change there? What was, you were very focused on your education and on academics, finishing where you did in your class. And did you get involved in any other extracurriculars there? Is that anything you...
Not necessarily with school, but I mean, I made friends. I mean, I didn't, just have a love of books, and that was my best friend. But I had like real people friends.
Yeah, that's good.
I would hang out with them. I would sometimes borrow like my mom's car and go like meet friends, hang out with them, do high school stuff together.
Yeah. Go to the Dairy Queen.
Go to the basketball games. Go to football games.
Cruise around the square. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, yes. So many times around the square.
Yeah. So, in so many ways, we hear it more in, like in older movies or like older times. But in Sullivan, the cool thing to do, we had a square that surrounded our county courthouse. And that was the thing to do. You'd go up, and this is where you'd go and hang out with people and see people. And you'd drive up there, and you'd just make laps
around. You drive in a circle.
Yeah, just
for hours.
Yeah, yeah.
sometimes you pull into a parking spot, talk to people.
Yeah, people jump in your car, you listen to some music,
yeah.
and go back to doing the same thing. You'd make another loop, go somewhere else, like come back a little bit later. Oh, nobody's up here. We'll come back later. And
yeah, so. But like always, like on Fridays, Saturdays, like
that was the thing to do.
Have a hard time even pulling on there because there's so many cars.
Yep.
And now it's funny. My husband and I drove up there. Not intentionally, but we were coming home from somewhere and we had, our nice minivan and our kids in the minivan with us. So we're like, let's go on the square.
Was it the same? Is it still the thing to do?
There was like one car maybe.
Oh, geez.
Like it's not the thing anymore. Yeah. And we felt really old then.
Yeah. Maybe it was just.
And we're like, oh my gosh.
Maybe it was just a Sunday.
Back in my day, back in my day,
right?
This place would have been hopping.
I know, it was such a silly thing.
Yeah.
You'd get in, it's like where you could get in trouble, like in some ways. It was what you made of it, I guess. But there was different little sections, so like each street would have certain hangouts. Like people would hang out. There's like certain groups of people that would hang out on each little section. And you always knew who would be like in what area. Like, oh, is so and so up there? Like, go check, whatever, this one side of the street or whatever. And it wasn't always the rule, but there was always like specific areas that you could remember, like groups of people. It was kind of like their hangout.
Yeah, it was still like that. But yeah, apparently Square is not the place to be anymore.
And nostalgia, man, it's taking me back.
I know, yeah. And even my mom, she's like, oh, yeah, the Square was the place to be. My mom graduated in 1977.
Yeah.
So it had a long run before it died.
It had its run. It had its run. Rest in peace. Its run. So I know that, we kind of mentioning the relationship with your family, your father and your brother and your mom. And I know that at some point in time, kind of things went a negative direction with your dad. Was that in high school?
Yeah, I was still in high school.
Okay.
So I think it was like the end of my sophomore year.
Okay.
Like things, I don't even really know how to describe it. It just got different. Mm-hmm. Like things were just not going well at home. There was like fighting constantly. It'd be like me versus my dad, me and my mom versus my dad, and me versus my brother, my mom versus my brother versus my dad. It was like always like someone was battling somebody else. There was lots of fighting. I remember one time I was in an argument with my dad over who knows what. And I remember throwing the remote control at him and like hitting him in the head with it. And that was not very nice of me.
Yeah.
But, it was just a very bad environment. Like, it was. Yeah. And so, going into my junior year, I remember I was a Saturday and I was sitting down in the living room and we had a computer desk there and I was on the computer doing homework and we're fighting, like the whole family, like all four of us were fighting. I don't even know what it was about. Mm-hmm. And I was so frustrated and I remember telling my dad, I don't care if you die, like I don't care. Like I've got this to do, like just leave me alone.
Yeah.
And my dad a little bit later I had went outside and I hear my brother say, Dad's got a shotgun. He's trying to kill himself. He's trying to shoot himself. And so my mom, she goes to the window and yelling at my dad, what are you doing? Get in the house. Mm-hmm. And my dad takes off through our yard, the road that's in front of our house. And he takes off down the road and we don't see him. So my mom, she calls the sheriff's department because that's who would be the jurisdiction. She calls them, my husband, he's got a shotgun and, we could see him from the window and it looked like he was trying to rig it up to shoot himself. So they come, they tell us to go down into our basement in case my dad came and would try to shoot through the windows. I don't know. But so we were down in the basement while they were looking around the neighborhood area for him. Mm-hmm. they didn't find him, so they're like, do you have somewhere safe that you can go tonight? And so that night we stayed with my mom's parents.
Yeah.
And so the next day was Sunday. I had to work at the local grocery store.
What was going through your mind at that point in time?
Just like, what in the world is going on?
Yeah.
Really, like, of all the things to be going on, like, this is what we're putting up with. Like,
yeah.
And
were you scared at all, or was this just
No, because, like, my dad had threatened to, like, kill himself in the past, and we're just like, you're not going to do it. Like, stop it, basically. Yeah. And so it was Sunday, and I was at work, and I was the only cashier there, and there was, like, one other person, because it's a small grocery store.
Mm-hmm.
And there was one other person there, and he was the owner. And my grandma came in the grocery store, and she didn't say a word to me and just went to the back. And then her and the owner comes up front, and they're standing by the front door. And I thought, like, that's weird. Like, my grandma hasn't said a word to me. Like, I'm a pretty awesome kid. Like, she should probably at least say hi.
Yeah.
And so I got done ringing up, like, the last of the customers that were in there, and the owner locks the door. And once again, I'm like, well, that's weird. Like, why would you just lock us up in here? Like, completely oblivious.
Yeah.
And my grandma comes over to me, and she's like, Alyssa, like, they found your dad. He's dead.
Oh, man.
And so I just start bawling.
Yeah.
And, like, I don't even, like, it was kind of like an out-of-body experience. Like, I was against my grandma, like, on her shoulder crying, but
yeah,
it's like
you're like going to shock.
There.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So she takes me from work, and my aunt and uncle, who's my dad's sister and her husband,
yeah,
they met us at my grandma's, and then they took me to my house. And that was it. Like, the next day was Monday. I missed school.
Yeah.
Because we were at the funeral home planning his funeral, and he didn't have life insurance.
Yeah.
So we had no way of paying for his funeral. Luckily, my aunt, my dad's sister, and her husband, they paid for it. And
yeah,
he was cremated, which we're like, for my family, like, all of us want to be cremated. Like,
yeah.
To me, like, it feels weird.
Same,
like,
actually.
My body's going to be in the ground, like, decomposing. Like, to me, that just creeps me out so bad.
Yeah.
Like, I'm like, I'd rather be cremated. Like, and that's how my whole family was, like, just cremated.
Yeah.
I don't even want to think about it. So,
Alyssa, we had a conversation before this podcast. You both and I had talked, and so I just want to give the audience that's listening, I want them to understand, like, this is something you wanted to talk about, and that you've expressed interest in talking about, like, the mental health aspect of things, and like, we both kind of talked about how a lot of people don't want to, or they shut down whenever you say, like, well, my dad killed himself, or however that conversation goes. But this is something that you feel is important to talk about, and so for those of you listening, like, this is a conversation that we've had beforehand, and this is the first time me hearing this story, but I just want to give people a little bit of a context to, if I ask maybe more direct questions, and I'm not trying to be insensitive to you, it's just something that we've talked about. So
right, yeah, I gave you the green light to go ahead and ask any questions that you feel like asking, and I may give graphic details that somebody might be like, wow, like, that's uncalled for maybe, but it's like, to me, it's like, this is very factual. This is what happened.
Yeah.
And it did happen, and I feel like suicide is a very taboo subject, and it's only taboo because we as people make it taboo. Like, there's no law that says we cannot talk about suicide. Like, nope, nixed, cut that out. And I've had so many people ask me through the years, because my dad's been gone 12 years. I've had people say, oh, I never hear you mention your dad, because, like, I'll mention, oh, my mom will blah blah blah, because my mom's still living.
Right.
And it's like, what happened to your dad? I was like, well, my dad died, however long ago. I'm like, oh, how did he die? I feel like they probably expect, like, oh, he died in a car wreck. or,
Yeah.
oh, he died from, cancer, something like that. I'm like, he committed suicide. And they just automatically shut down. They're like, I am so sorry. They're like, if I would have known, I wouldn't have asked. I'm like, well, why?
Yeah.
Like, why wouldn't you have asked? Like, you're not hurting me. Like, I'm okay letting you know that. Like,
Yeah.
you're the one that has a problem with it.
Yeah.
But, I mean, because it is what happened. And I'm not going to lie to somebody and say something else happened.
Yeah.
Because I want to bring awareness to suicide and mental health aspects that can lead to suicide.
Yeah, definitely. I just appreciate that. I just wanted people to know, and like I really try to be very respectful of the conversations and the stories that they kind of unfold, and I just want people to know, like, I'm not being insensitive to you. This is a conversation we've had, and you've given me, like you said, the green light to kind of ask more questions and to talk about this. So, yeah, so that's kind of one of the reasons, and your story continues, but this is one of the reasons that you've gotten into selling life insurance, and you explained that in the beginning, but this is one of the reasons that you didn't have that as a family. You didn't have life insurance for your father, and so you had to. It was an issue. It was something that you saw a gap in the system and a gap in the area, and you wanted to get involved in helping people know that there are options, there are things available out there. I think that's very cool.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
it's like, I don't know what my family would have done if my aunt hadn't stepped up to pay for my dad's funeral, because, and we didn't even have it at the funeral home because we couldn't have it at the funeral home. We had like a memorial service at our church because, we wouldn't have to pay a funeral home because, like I said before, doing him up cheap.
Right. How did this affect your family going forward?
Oh my goodness. My brother took it really hard. Him and my dad were very close. They were very similar in personalities. So he really took it hard. My brother, he was very, very shy, very socially backwards. He, like, looking back, like, as we know more about, like, autism, he probably would have been on the autism spectrum.
Yeah.
Like, the doctors that he went to, they said that socially he was not that past as a 12-year-old.
Okay.
So, so he was kind of like the polar opposite of me, as well as like personality-wise, and like my dad was these worlds. Like, they were just very close. My mom, she had a lot of like guilt because she felt like it was her fault.
Yeah. Did you have any feelings? You had made the comment that that you had made to your dad about not caring if he had died, and how did that affect your mindset and your mental health in some ways?
It hurt for a long time.
Yeah.
Especially like the past few weeks afterwards.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, it hurt so bad.
Yeah.
And I remember one time here, within the past few years, my stepdaughter and my husband were arguing. She was like being like how I was to my dad. And I just told her, don't be saying anything. You just never know when something might happen. Like, your dad could, get in a car wreck tomorrow and your last words could be something so hurtful.
Yeah.
And obviously I still get emotional about it.
Mm-hmm.
But, like, I've come to terms with what I said.
Yeah. What was that process like? Did you seek out help? Did you have any counseling, or what is your process been of kind of taking care of yourself and dealing with this as you've gotten older?
I should have gotten counseling, but I didn't.
Yeah.
I felt like I had to be strong for my mom, for my brother. My mom, she was just kind of like checked out emotionally, mentally for like the past, probably like the month or so afterwards. I remember telling her, like, Mom, have you eaten today?
Yeah.
No. Well, you need to eat, And so, like, taking care of her, taking care of my brother, making sure bills got paid.
Yeah.
Like, I was just kind of, like, really, like, that first year afterwards, like, I was, like, the adult in the house.
Yeah. Which is kind of a theme throughout your childhood and adolescence, of kind of growing up. And it sounds like you stepped up big for your family and took a lot of responsibility throughout those very foundational, fundamental years of growth in your life. And, that's, it's something that clearly, it plays a big part into who you are today. And I think we often think like, oh, I think the idea would be like, oh, poor thing, like you shouldn't have had to have done that. And, the sentiment's right in so many ways, like you shouldn't have had to have been in that situation, but you were,
but
and it's made you who
made
you are
me,
today.
Like a stronger person. It makes me who I am today.
Yeah.
I've faced adversity since then, and I will in the future, and it's just like, I've handled worse. I can do this.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Now, as you kind of dealt with that over the next year, you said, did things start to get a little bit better? Did your family start to kind of find its ways to cope? And how did
yes and no.
Yeah.
My brother and my mom, they still had difficulties. My mom, she had a lot of guilt, a lot of like kind of like self-loathing, hate towards herself, like it was her fault, and that if she would have been, a better wife, a better, if she wouldn't fought with my dad, then, and, I told her, I'm like, that was Dad's decision. You didn't pull the trigger. You weren't there. I was like, that was his choice. You always got choices, but that was his choice, and he made it.
Yeah.
And it really it's only been within the past few years that she has really forgiven herself.
Sure.
And realized that it's not her fault.
Yeah.
But my brother, he still struggled. And then, so fast forward so my dad died in 2007.
Okay.
Fast forward to 2015. My brother, he just was not able to kind of like make it on his own. My mom, she sold the property, the house where we had all grown up. By that point, I was living with my husband. We had, my stepdaughter and 2 children. We didn't have my youngest yet. But, we were living together, and we have a big pole barn back behind our house, and my mom was in the process of converting that to like an apartment for her. It's a 2-bedroom, 1.5 bath.
Nice.
And she told my brother, you're 27 years old. You've got to, live on your own. You've got to make your own life. Trying to like push baby bird out of the nest. Like, hey, take flight. You got this.
Yeah.
And he worked at a gas station, and so he didn't have a lot of income, so he was able to get housing at like the high rise out by the 4-H ground.
Yeah.
And for those of you that don't know, that's like a low income housing.
Sure.
I want to say it's like 7 stories tall, like this big building.
Yeah.
And
it's like one of the only like really apartments in Sullivan County, really, is it? Like like apartment building type, like you would think of in like a city, or not like there are apartments type, as far as like houses that are apartments or duplexes or whatever, but it's one of the few for sure.
So he was having a lot of health problems, like physically, and a lot of health problems mentally. And he, like my dad, battled depression so much. And one day he, I guess, decided that he couldn't take it anymore. And so he split both wrists. And then I guess it wasn't taking or wasn't acting fast enough to kill him, and so he jumped headfirst out of a third-story window, and he died on impact.
Man, Alyssa, you've been through a lot.
And so my mom, once again, dealing with the death of her son.
Yeah. Is that, in her dealing with that, you had mentioned earlier that it's been in the last few years that she had kind of, started to deal or realize that it wasn't her fault for, your dad and her husband. Was this part of that? Was she able to find help and seek counseling, or was that something she's just been dealing with?
Yeah, she was able to seek counseling. I definitely encouraged her, because it's like, your husband, now your son.
Yeah.
And she really took my brother's death hard.
Yeah.
Because once again, like, the feeling of guilt.
Right. And her urging him to be on his own and kind of do his own thing.
Right,
too.
yeah. Like, did I push him to this? And once again, it's like, Mom, he's got his own choice to make.
Yeah.
And this is his choice.
Whew.
Sorry, I'm getting like all emotional here.
I know.
Yeah, I know.
You warned me, and
I did warn you. I would cry.
And it's okay. I'm fighting it back over here. I'm holding it together. There's some pauses. That's why.
I know. Like, if you don't hear anything from me for a second, like, just give me a moment.
Yeah, it's okay. It's okay. Take your time. And something I'm really interested in knowing about or hearing about was, was it salutatorian that you finished? Is that what you said?
I was salutatorian, yeah.
Yeah, so you finished salutatorian when you graduated, and so throughout all of this time with your dad, pre your brother, but taking care of your family, taking care of, things around the house, and kind of having that bigger role within your, responsibility-wise within your family, and you still were able to, finish top of your class, towards the top of your class, and what do you contribute to that? I mean, bottom line, it's a mental toughness of some sort that's allowed you to stay focused and allowed you to continue to push and to be, to be disciplined like you were. What do you contribute to that?
Like, I leaned on God a lot.
Yeah.
I did. I had so many conversations with him.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even know how many.
Yeah.
And just knowing that I have to be the one to, help everybody along, basically.
Yeah.
And, like, school was, like, my safe place, I guess.
Yeah.
I love to go to school. Like, I could, like, mentally check out, like, everything that was going on at home, like, kind of leave it at the door and be there while I was at school and just focus on school while I was there.
Yeah.
And then, like, when I left, I could, pick it back up and carry on.
Mm-hmm.
But, I don't know how many times I go to, like, the cemetery and, like, cry and just talk to Dad and talk to God.
Yeah.
Whew. But anyway, I think just, I feel like maybe somebody says, how can you turn to God after something like that? It's like, how could you not?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And, growing up, I always heard that if you commit suicide, like, you go to hell, like, automatically. It doesn't matter what kind of life you lived. If you commit suicide, then you went to hell. And as I was older, I talked to a pastor about that, and he's like, nowhere in the Bible does it mention to where, like, if you commit suicide, you go to hell. He's like, that's basically, like, people's interpretation of whatever. But he's like, it doesn't say that in the Bible, and that helped me.
Yeah.
And because, like, my dad, I always remembered him, like, reading the Bible, and I know that Jesus and God, they were part of his life.
Yeah.
He believed in Jesus. He believed in God, and like, that's the only book I ever remember my dad reading was the Bible.
Yeah.
And so I gotta tell you the story, but anyway, it was probably months after my dad had died, and I was laying in bed right before bed, and I was just sobbing. And I remember saying, like, God, like, give me a sign. Like, let me know that my dad's okay. Let me know that he's not in hell, because I don't want to believe that my dad's in hell.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to believe that. And so I fell asleep after a while, and I was dreaming, and my brother, who was still alive at that point, was in my dream. And my dad, when he was alive, like, he loved scaring people. Like, he'd hide behind doors, and, like, he would, like, call you, be like, oh, hey, come here. And you'd unsuspectingly, like, go into that room, and, like, he'd jump out and scare you. And, like, that was his whole purpose of, like, having you come there, was so he could scare you.
Yeah.
And so, like, I was in that dream, and my dad jumps out and, like, kind of, like, scares me. I'm like, ah. And so crazy, like, thinking about this dream, but I went with my dad, like, away from the dream, and we were in, like, white nothingness. Like, I can't, just bright white nothingness. Like, no floor, no ceiling, no walls, nothing. And, like, we both knew that he was dead. Like, there was no, like, words spoken about it, but it's like we both knew that he was dead. And I remember asking, like, what's it like being dead? And he just was so happy, that just smiling his face, like all the worries of the world were gone.
Yeah.
And he was just happy. And my brother from my dream was saying, like, Alyssa, come back. Alyssa, come back. And I went back to my dream. And whenever I woke up, it was like, that was my sign. Like, my dad's happy. He's okay.
Yeah.
He's not in hell.
Yeah. And you felt a peace, or like a weight off your shoulders from that?
So much. So much so. And I feel like that was really, like, the beginning of, like, my healing process.
Mm-hmm.
Was, like, that dream. And I feel like that was God's message to me, was he's okay.
That's awesome. I'm really glad you've, found some peace within that. I mean, it's such a thing. I've lost, two friends in the last couple of years to suicide myself. And, it doesn't compare anything to, your story, or, losing your brother and your father. But, I didn't have the greatest relationship with one of my friends that had passed away. And I lived with him, and I wrote him off. And I don't feel guilt for that. I don't feel guilt for not being a part of his life. I don't feel guilt for those types of things. But it still permeates your brain sometimes, we didn't have the greatest relationship at the end there. And, no matter what our relationship was like, you never want something like that to happen to someone, and you never want the worst for someone. And so it's something that, it's something you wrestle with in your mind. And that's kind of how I relate to, maybe what you're talking about is just this, you're always kind of like wrestling with it. And especially, early on, I think it's just one of those things where you're like, man, like, I would have helped you, like, I didn't know you were hurting, like, I didn't know this, or like, I didn't know you needed, if I would have set everything aside to help you, and it's those moments. And it's not for me at least, I know some people have different things. It's not a guilt. I don't feel responsible. But it's just like, man, I know we didn't have the best relationship, but I would have helped you, I would have been there for you.
Exactly.
It's just hard. Like, and it's hard. The questions, you just don't understand. I think that's where some of the stigma and some of the taboo, ness comes out with suicide and people that take their own life, is that there's just so many question marks. Even if you know the pain and have seen some of that pain and the struggle, there's still this question mark of like, why? Like, what was it? Like, you can't comprehend, you can't understand, there's no way for you to live within their body to understand where they're mentally, where they were physically, where any of that was to be able to do that. And there's just always leaves so many question marks.
Yeah. Yeah. And with my brother, like towards the end of his life, like we weren't close like we had been.
Yeah.
And, I'd be like, man, like if I would have known, like I would have, been there for him more,
Yeah.
invited him over to my house more, like enveloped him more into my life and my family's life more. And I just didn't know.
Yeah. I know.
And,
What
you brought up like the questions, like, my dad, he didn't leave a suicide note, but he did leave like his will out. And I was the one that found the will that he'd left out. So, it made me wonder, like, okay, did he plan this like earlier that day? Or did he come back to the house after everybody had left and left it out? I don't know. But my brother did leave a note, and because he knew that it was like such a big thing for us of like with my dad of not leaving a note of like, this is why. And my brother did, which I think also helped.
Yeah, did that
like
help
kind of answer some of those questions?
Yeah. What have you, what are the steps or what are the ways that you personally have gone about not coping, but dealing with, these two losses in your life? And what suggestions or what advice would you give people that have lost people, maybe recently, or even people that are dealing with, mental health issues in and of themselves? Like, what do you have any, thoughts or advice or, things you would say to them?
Yeah, definitely seek counseling, whether it be that you've lost someone close to you, and you're dealing with grief. I wish I would have done that. I didn't. But like after my dad died, I had my best friend who was there, and she was, if I need to get out of the house or do whatever, she's like, I'm always here for you. And having her support, and whenever my brother died, having my husband's support, he's like, I don't know what you're going through, but I'm here for you, And he's probably my therapist. We talk about everything together, and, I've cried on his shoulder who knows how many times, talking about this. And
I feel the same way about my wife. She's my therapist as well. She, whether she wants to be or not, she gets to deal with all of my emotions and all of my craziness. So.
Oh yeah. Well, we gotta have them there for that.
Absolutely.
So, definitely having somebody to talk to, whether that be, someone in your life personally or somebody in your life professionally, as a mental health counselor, or definitely having somebody to talk to, mull over your emotions with, because it's a very emotional time, especially right afterwards when those emotions are so raw and in your face, and there might be days when you're like, I don't know what to do. Like, I just feel like not doing anything, like just sitting on the couch and just like staring at a blank wall. But, and I feel like I wish I would have went to like a professional mental health counselor and like, went there, and it would have helped me out tremendously.
Yeah.
Rather than dealing with it on my own.
Yeah. Have you ever been to a counselor since?
I did go once. I did go once after my brother passed. But it was like several months later, and my husband was like, you need to go. I'm like, I know I need to go. And like I was saying that over like a course of several months, I finally went.
Yeah.
But by then, like, it wasn't as raw, it wasn't as, breaking down. But at the same time, like, I handle my brother's death better than I do my dad.
Yeah.
And I feel like, maybe it is because, his is the second one, where it's like my dad's is the first one.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a lot of, like, tell my dad that I didn't care if he died. Like, I asked God and my dad for forgiveness so many times.
Yeah.
But I didn't have that last emotional interaction with my brother.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's probably why it's not as affecting towards me as like my dad's is.
Yeah.
But yeah, I only went one time to somebody who was a professional.
Mm-hmm.
But like I said, you know, I talked it over with my husband so much.
Yeah. Yeah, I think those people in your life that can support you, and you know, there's nothing wrong either. I mean, and this is a comment to you as well. You know, I know maybe you're fine, maybe you're doing well, and if that's something, I'm talking to the mirror right now. Like, I'm talking in the mirror because I've been saying for a long time that I want to, you know, seek a counselor and just kind of, you know, just to talk to somebody, just about life and whatever. And I haven't done that, and it seems like such a thing, you know, and there's a comfort level with the people you know that are close. And I highly encourage anyone, you know, that's going through something, don't just stuff it in, you know, at least talk to somebody, even if that's someone close. But there's nothing wrong with going and seeking help. There's nothing wrong with talking to a counselor or seeking professional help. You know, there's nothing wrong with that. So don't let that
I feel like there's
stigma.
like a negative stigma about if you talk to somebody who's a mental health counselor. It's like, oh, you go and see a shrink. It's like, you know, you can go there and talk about just everyday problems. It doesn't matter what it is.
Yeah.
And I feel like going and seeing somebody just to talk about just everyday life stuff, like, it'll help you, you know,
Absolutely.
help you get a better grasp on things and be like, just have it lifted from your shoulders, like, oh, it feels so nice, like just talking to somebody about this.
Yeah,
you know?
I agree. Yeah, and it's important. It's important to seek that help. And you know, everyone has things that we're dealing with, and it doesn't take, you know, the suicide of someone in your family or death of someone in your family to mean that you don't need to seek help either, you know. So don't be afraid if you're listening, and to go and seek that help if you need it. It's important. Lisa, you know, I want you to talk a little bit about, you know, these two deaths in your family's life. You know, we've touched on it several times now, but big reason that you kind of pursued the life insurance world. And what are your advice to people that maybe you're listening, even if they're not in India? If they're in Indiana, they need to reach out to you. We'll get them connected. I'll make sure to share those links. How can they get connected there? And then also, just in general, like people around the country, around the world, around that maybe they don't have life insurance. What suggestions or advice would you give them?
Get it.
Yeah.
You don't need it until, you know, you're dead.
Yeah.
But, you know, that's when you actually have to use it.
Are there resources that you would suggest that people that aren't in Indiana that couldn't necessarily reach out to you, but are there other resources out there?
So I would definitely, you know, see what's in your area. Definitely, I would say go to an independent agent because they can kind of like shop around for you, versus somebody who's a captive. Like they only work for one company, and so, you know, one size doesn't fit all.
Yeah.
So I would definitely suggest you go somewhere that has several different insurance carriers that they work with, because, you know, people have different medical conditions, you know, health issues that they have going on, to where one carrier may say, no, you have this certain condition, we won't take you. Whereas another carrier is like, heck, that's it, come on board, you know.
Yeah.
So, you know, I would definitely suggest, you know, looking around you, see what's available, and ask people, you know, ask out on social media or something, you know, hey, who would you recommend? You know, because people say, oh, go here or don't go here. Of course, social media, so take it with a grain of salt as well.
Yeah.
But, you know, reach out to other people, reach out to family members, ask family members if they have life insurance, because say your grandma has life insurance but doesn't tell anybody. Well, when she passes away, you know, who's going to know to contact her life insurance company to let them know that, hey, she's passed away, we need her insurance policy cashed out.
Yeah.
So you know, talk to your family members, you know, be aware if somebody has life insurance, and if they don't, encourage them to get it, because, funerals are so expensive, and it's so much better on the family members who are left behind to know that, that person had a life insurance policy. That way they're not stressing about the finances of, okay, we're dealing with the emotions of losing this person, and now we're having to deal with the stress of how do we pay for their funeral.
Yeah. And how can people that live in Indiana, maybe in the Sullivan area, or even just in Indiana in general, how can they get in touch with you and Pink Lion Financial and talk to you more about life insurance?
We have a Facebook page, Pink Lion Financial, and my personal phone number is on there. So I don't have a work phone and a personal phone because that's just cumbersome to carry around two phones. So, my phone number's on there if you need to reach out to me, or if you have any questions. Even if you just want to say, hey, how did you deal with this aspect of suicide? Because I'm more than happy to ask or to answer any questions that anybody has. I'm going to be upfront and honest with people.
Yeah.
And, and if I can help somebody who's going through the same thing, I'm more than willing, more than happy to help somebody out.
Awesome. And if you're listening and you want to get in contact with Alyssa, and you don't have Facebook or you don't have the ability to find her contact information, feel free to reach out to us here at CrazyFaceUno throughout crazyfaceuno.com. You can email us at info@crazyfaceuno.com. Our phone number is on our website as well. You can find our contact information. Shoot us a DM on Instagram, or tweet us, or shoot us a message on Facebook, and we'll make sure you get that contact information and get connected with Alyssa and Pink Lion Financial. Thank you so much, Alyssa. I'm going to wrap things up. We're reaching the end of our time. Is there anything you want to leave us with? Anything you want to say before we go?
Yeah, actually there is. So we've been talking on the phone for probably about an hour and a half, and there is roughly one death by suicide in the U.S. every 12 minutes. So that's roughly 6 people during this conversation that have committed suicide.
Wow.
And I just want to kind of bring awareness to suicide, like how many people are affected by it, how many people are impacted by, the deaths of their loved ones by suicide.
Yeah. And what was that statistic one more time?
One person in the U.S. every 12 minutes. It's roughly 123 people in the U.S. every day by suicide.
Wow. Yes. Thank you so much, Alyssa. I really appreciate you coming on and sharing your story. And, there's hope. And if you're listening and you're struggling, with whatever, your mental health, or you're struggling with the death in your family, or the loss of someone, or the loss by suicide, find some help. Talk to somebody. Know you're not alone. Know that, your story, Alyssa, is a story of triumph. You've overcome, and you guys have found a way to continue to keep going and to make the most of the life of your father and your brother, by living life to its fullest and raising your daughters to be the women that you want them to be, and that they can be proud of you and of Kevin and of the life that you're living. So thank you so much, and thanks for giving people hope in a bit of your story that allows them to see the other side of things and allows people to hear the story of that you've gone through. I think it's important. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you for allowing me to share my story with you.
Absolutely. And thank you all so much for listening. We really appreciate it. If you enjoyed the show today, visit us on Facebook and Instagram to like and comment on the post. If you want to go above and beyond, get the word out and share the CrazyFaceUno Podcast with your friends and family, or to random strangers on the street. We're welcome to everyone. And don't forget to check out Pink Lion Financial and Alyssa Arnett's Facebook page. You can check that out on Facebook and like and share that information as well. Again, please visit crazyfaceuno.com to buy our merchandise and to donate. Your contributions help us share more stories like Alyssa's and stories just like yours. Really appreciate you. We love you all. Thanks again for listening. Peace.